Alright, looks like we're live. It says what it says. This is all new to me, so be patient, hear me out. Maybe even help me out, because I know there's a way to chat as you do this. And as we are live, what is the point of, I'm not saying bad connection. This could be interesting. If anybody's there, maybe you could let me know if there is a bad connection. Try and find where. Oh yeah, by the way, hey, this is Jason from HNS Games. Finally revealing myself, pulling the mask off, and scaring away everybody, I'm sure, but it is hot and it is humid here in New Orleans, and all we have is these 3 window units for a shotgun house. My lord, the humidity is ridiculous. What am I looking for? I'm looking for something that shows... Sorry. Distracted for the moment. Well, the last time I did this, there was something that showed... There we are. Wow, what a delay, that's weird. Alright, so welcome everybody. This is me. If you have something to say, something to ask, now's the time. Jason. Yep. The guy, the face behind the voice, behind the podcast. Here I am. So, thought I'd do a quick channel update. And you know, honestly, it's time. The not being able to talk to you and you guys see me, I guess I get that. You know, I'm over the fear and the worry and the whatever the hell else could go wrong. But yeah, so thought I would update the channel briefly and let you know where we're at with HNS Games, with what else? With Advanced Platoon Leader, and with just things in general. So that's what I aim to do. So basically, Advanced Platoon Leader was released June 6th, a little over 2 weeks ago, and this thing is doing fairly well. I'm pleased with the reception that it's getting. There are some hitches, as to be expected, as there will be with anything. Namely, it seems like miscommunication with a couple things. And regarding that, I suppose there was some misunderstanding as far as the boxed edition. So, this is print and play, Ziploc, and box edition, and I believe a few people are under the understanding that when they order the box edition, they too, that will have counters that you can punch out, or at least mounted, and unfortunately, no, that's not the case. The fact, hear me out now, honestly, the fact that we even have a box is like putting a man on the moon. I kid you not. And you might say, well, that's the hard part. Getting counters is easy. Yeah, well, it isn't. It isn't. So no counters. Bottom line, there are no mounted counters in the box. I apologize. They will need to be mounted, but losing my train of thought here. So yeah, you'll have to mount them. Now, some people ask, well, because I printed out some things on cardstock, some things on paper, and some people are like, hey, in fact, one gentleman said, hey, I received the game, and some of this, the counters are on paper. What, did you mean to do that? And yeah, well, I meant to do that. The reasoning behind that is partly cost, but it wouldn't have broke the bank if we printed these things out on cardstock, okay? The reasoning behind it was as simple as, regardless of whether we print these on paper or print these on cardstock, they have to be mounted. And I understand that there are a few of you that would say, okay, well, cardstock's fine. I can cut those out and go to town. I guess that's true, you have an argument. But personally, I wouldn't be satisfied with just little thin counters printed on cardstock. So I figure if you gotta mount them either way, save a few bucks, keep the game affordable, and have the purchaser mount them. Okay, enough said about that. I suppose in hindsight, I could have gone about that differently, and perhaps in the future we will. We'll get to that as well. But so the box edition does not have mounted counters, so there's that. And but as far as again, the reception, the sales of this thing is just fine and dandy. I don't have really any complaints in that regard. I'm a little curious about the lack of response for this thing, and I guess you could say no news is good news, and well, I suppose I'll say that. No news is good news, but haven't heard too much. Now I understand that there are a lot of you that when you get a game, it goes in a priority list. There are other things that you already have that are waiting. Life intervenes, I get all that. But admittedly, I'm a little curious to hear what people think. And I'm sure eventually when you folks get around to doing some playing, I will definitely hear back from you, because I know you guys aren't shy, and if you have something to say, you will say it. So waiting on some reception, and just need to be patient there. What else? You know, it's hard to believe, but the very first game, Platoon Leader itself, is still selling and doing rather well. So that's good. Just sold one today and a couple yesterday, so that's still going. Which I guess brings me to another point, and that is I'm at kind of a crossroads. I'm at kind of a crossroads with this whole thing. And well, what do you mean by that? And I mean by that, I've reached a point where, I don't know how to put this delicately, I either need to hang it up and be done, or look into some serious upgrade as far as company, people that can help, employees, if you will, upscale, better production, etc. I'm happy with the graphics at this point of everything. I've got that ironed out thanks to Robert Lenz. I will need to, if I do move forward, I will need to talk to him and see if he is interested in moving forward with H&S Games as the resident in-house graphics guy. But again, I'm not sure where I want to go. Like I said, I'm at a crossroads with this stuff, so to back up, the fact that we were able to do a box is phenomenal. So we would need to look into things like actually getting counters die cut, and you know, that you can punch out, and if there's going to be cards, actual printed glossy cards, you know, that type of stuff. All these things require an investment of a number of things, time, money, etc. And how to go about doing that. A couple people have asked, and rightly so, why don't you just kickstart the thing? If you have confidence in it and you have people that have been buying it and you know will support it, and kickstarting it may be a way to better reach out to people. Why not go that route? And I honestly, I don't have a decent answer other than maybe I'm afraid of success. I don't know. The way things are right now, it's manageable. as far as what I can do, and that's important because, to be honest with you, I'm really the only one that is putting in the legwork here. Again, I've got Robert Lenz that has been doing graphic design stuff. I have my brother, God bless him, who's made it possible for us to get boxes simply because of where he works. But there are other factors that will have to rein in, and who to do that, etc. So there's a lot of things to consider, and this is all good. This is not bad. This is all good because, again, there's no point in continuing to exist as a company if I'm not going to continually improve. If I'm going to keep pumping out the same stuff of equal or lesser value, might as well just hang it up. So if I can't figure out a way to better myself and what I'm putting out there, then I guess that's what I'll do. So that's a little update with that. I think somebody said, how did H&S Games get its start? I don't know if I shared this briefly on Board Game Geek. And I know there's a couple of you watching. Spread the word because I'm not going to do this often, or will I? I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But anybody wants to see and hear me simultaneously, now's your chance. I don't know, again, how often I'm going to do this, so if you want to let people know that I'm doing this, that's fine. I probably should have done so beforehand, but I didn't. When I try and use this phone camera to do stuff, half the time it works, half the time it doesn't, and in between I'm ready to just hang it up and throw it out the window because of what I've had to go through to get this to work. So add that to the list, a camera to properly film what I do and yours truly. So how did H&S Games get started? I don't know that it's an overly interesting, dramatic story, but I'll share it regardless. And I should probably back up. The whole thing began, it wouldn't be possible without this podcast, Hexes and Soldiers podcast. And that was started thanks to my nephew, who was doing a hockey podcast. And when I saw him do an episode, I thought, my God, that's all there is to it? Why ain't I doing this? Everybody can do this. Anyone, even me. So I sat down and gave it a shot, and 49 episodes later, again, I'm not saying they're all gems, but 49 episodes later, here I am, still doing it. So, and unbeknownst at the time, doing that podcast laid the groundwork for an audience, if you will. People that I could reach out to and inform and let them know as to what I'm doing, what I'm up to. So when it came to, hey, I've got this idea, I'm going to put it down, put it out there, I already had a core base that I could relate this news to and go from there. So that helped extremely. And then, of course, word of mouth, you guys, you blessed souls, let other people know that I'm out here. So yeah, see, need a camera because it just clicked off. Now I don't know how many interruptions we're going to have like that, but I was stating, from St. Louis, came down here to New Orleans because of a lady friend, and that's where the ball really got rolling, hardcore into the podcast thing, and started messing around with Platoon Leader. Where did that come from? A number of things. You play something, there are certain things that stick to you that you remember that you don't lose, and that goes from game to game to game to game, and it's usually the things that stand out that you remember, and all these things over the years had stood out, and I started trying to combine them into a singular kind of coherent thing that became Platoon Leader. The other thing that was important was this was a game and a system that I enjoyed. It wasn't just something that I thought, hey, this will look cool, and worked it out on paper and left it at that. This is something that I enjoyed playing, and it worked, and I really liked it. So I thought, hey, maybe I could share this with somebody and go from there. That's what I did. I was lucky to have, trying to remember, I was lucky to have, I worked on campus at University of New Orleans, UNO, and I was lucky to have a copy center there, and a lady who was an interesting lady. You had to catch her. She's one of these people that you had to catch her in a good mood, and luckily I was able to do that. Otherwise, you didn't want to mess with her. You didn't get what you wanted. It was done wrong. It sounds awful, but it actually worked out okay. Lucky enough to get in her good graces, and she would start cutting me deals, you know, because she would ask about what I'm doing, and I guess she thought it was kind of cool or hip or whatever, and would cut me deals on the cost, and that helped allow for an initial print run of Platoon Leader. When I was unable to continue doing that for various reasons, I thought maybe it's time to go to the print and play thing, and that was interesting territory to explore. There were codes to consider and security things, and how do I prevent people from, if they get this at the front, you can't. You can come up with the most intense, rigorous code and security thing to determine why, to prevent somebody from sharing this stuff, but at the end of the day, whether it takes a week or whatever, they're going to figure it out and they're going to share it. So just whatever. Make my life easier, forgo all that, just put it out there as available. I think I used, tried initially to use eBay, and eBay didn't like that very much. They're like, hey, you're selling something, but you're not really selling something. You know, this is stuff actually that, now that I mentioned, eBay is not prepared to tackle yet. It may sound weird, but they're not, because it's not a tangible material thing that you're selling, and it's not a service. So they just said, hey, you can't do this. So I started looking at some other options, and I found Wix, which is a website template that you can build your own website. Gave that a shot, and lo and behold, you don't have to be a webmaster magician to do this stuff. Go to Wix, you can do it yourself in a day or two, and that's what I did. And again, got the word out. I had a couple Facebook pages that assisted as well. I don't mean to drag on, but I'm dragging on. So this all congealed and came together and coagulated into what I have now. So the podcast, the Board Game Geek page, the Facebook pages, even the blog that I rarely, if ever, keep up anymore. All this stuff, word of mouth, which again I really appreciate, because as I mentioned, I've never paid a cent of advertising. I don't believe in it. I think advertising to an extent is evil. I understand it's a necessary evil, but if you do it right, it can be tolerable. But to pay advertising companies all this money to do what they do, that's ridiculous. So all this came together, and I'm not saying what I've done is a fabulous success story and I've got yachts and motorcycles. I got nothing. I got nothing other than I'm able to break even and continue to have done what I've done for as long as I have. And luckily I enjoy doing what I'm doing, and it also helps with the lady friend, because then I can say, hey, I'm not just gaming and wasting time, I'm getting compensated for what I'm doing, so how can you argue with that? You know, it's not like I'm just sitting here pushing counters and, well, not getting paid for it. So that's it, the long story of how Ace Miss Games got its start. I think that was 2014, and still here, but again, at a crossroads, trying to figure out where to go, and how to deal with that. Now, another thing I should add, and I would like to share, is this last game. Now, it took me, the groundwork was already laid with Platoon Leader, I get that. But this is significantly different from Platoon Leader. In fact, probably so much so that it was almost like creating a new game from the ground up in a lot of respects. And my God, with Ostfront doing that, and I thought that was going to do me in, that was nothing compared to this. And I remember talking to my brother at one point. I'm like, dude, I'm losing my mind. I'm getting irritable. I'm having fits. I'm raising my voice at my significant other. I'm at my wit's end with this game. You know, I'm in over my head. It's almost too much for one person to deal with. But I toughed it out, and in fact, his advice was take a couple months off, and that's what I did. So, if any of you remember the initial release date, that's why that was pushed back for my sanity. I had to push the release date back, and that suited me well because when I came back later on after having taken that break, I was able to look at that thing with fresh eyes, and I caught a lot of things that I was blind to at the time because I had been staring at it for so long. It was all blending together. So that was some good advice, and that saved me. But again, that thing took, I don't know how to explain it. I'm not complaining or saying poor me or this is so hard, this stuff, and why do you do it? I thought you enjoyed it. I do enjoy it, all that, but designing and developing a game, it's taxing. It really is. And don't think it's all dandelions and kitten tails and wagging puppy dog tails. I mean, at the end of the day, when it's all done, sure, a little bit of that, and even then, not exactly, because then, once you got the thing done, or so you think, then you put it out there, right? And you have Joe Wargamer look at it and he says, what about this? What do you mean by that? And they force you to reconsider things that you thought or were under the impression that worked, that perhaps maybe don't work quite so well. Errata, all that stuff. So I mean, when you're done with the game, you're not done with the game. Then you have to, you've merely stood it up. Once it's out there, you have to teach it to walk. Does that make sense? And luckily there are people out there that are willing to help, again, with their feedback. So it's a long road and it's only just begun. But I bring all this up because when I think about continuing in this vein and doing another game, my God, I want to, it's like I want to hide. So I don't know where I'm at with this stuff. Maybe I should tackle something a little less big size-wise as far as rules, as far as the detail, as far as all that stuff. Maybe I should do something easy, a little more, I don't want to say a little more fun, but you know, anyway, the idea of doing something similar to Advanced Platoon Leader or even Ostfront, if I do, it'll be a while because it took a lot out of me, trust me. What else? So HNS Games, doing okay, where it got its start. Advanced Platoon Leader, doing good, waiting for feedback on that. The podcast itself, where all this started. Where am I at with this? Because people that started with me from the very beginning, thank you for that are still around. What's up with the podcast? It's more and more infrequent. And I'll admit it, it's probably a little less inspired. You can maybe get that from the content. And if that is in fact the case, that's the impression that you got. I sincerely apologize for that. But I should add that, and this is perhaps not an excuse, but just an admission, I've been busy. You know, there's only so much time for stuff. And between working at the library 40 plus hours a week, designing, developing games, being a plus one for your soulmate, all that stuff, you know, there's only so much time in the day. And short of just letting the podcast completely evaporate, I have to get some episodes out there, but in doing so, they may seem a little too contrived or forced. So I apologize for that, but my intention, what I would like to do, is really, and I say this now, right? But honestly, really give a jolt, a kickstart to the whole podcast. Get back to the nitty-gritty of the show content, stuff like that, because that's where it all started, and I enjoy doing them when I have the time. So that's where I am with that. And also, this next podcast will be number 50. And I have said in the past, you know, my whole intention was to, if I did this, I wasn't just going to do a couple episodes and quit. I want to get at least 50 out there. So this will be 50. What happens after that? I don't know. I'm going to wait and announce that. I've kind of hinted around about possibly ending, making that the last show. But even if I did, I would be back in another form, so maybe that's not the best option or idea, at least right now. So, podcast, got that covered. Got a little list here. What else? So, just a couple other things, and then I have something. It's not just boring, ugly mug guy. And then I have something actually fun to show you. So, thank you for sticking around, person, whoever you are. Board Game Geek again. Let's go back to that. Yeah, I know. Read a couple threads, and there's some people that have admitted and are recognizing, as do I, that we are in a golden age of wargaming, and we absolutely are. Don't think that we are not. There's no question about it. Now is the best time. There's never been a better time to be into wargaming, to play it, to be a publisher of war games. These as good as I'm doing, able to do what I do, a lot of businesses are thriving and really turning over a good profit, and that's a good sign. That shows that the hobby still has a healthy audience, a bunch of gamers that are still out there supporting all this stuff, and will continue to do so for a long time. A golden age of wargaming. We really are, and again, in a lot of respects, it's better to be a wargamer now than it was when it started. Now you have this stuff. Instant reviews, you have email, all this, again, instantaneous feedback and sharing of ideas and opinions, and it all stands to better the hobby, and it is in fact bettering the hobby. So definitely a golden age of wargaming, and the fact that I can do what I'm doing with little to no experience, okay, take that with a grain of salt. Little to no major conglomerate backing or support is a real testament to where we're at in wargaming. And there are more and more. All you got to do is just look around the corner. More and more small publishers popping up. And that was a thread that I have responded to as well recently. And I may have missed the gist of what this guy was getting at, but he was a little skeptical of the amount of small publishers out there, but more specifically the low print run they produce, and he was kind of equating that with making that synonymous, if you will, with a poor quality product, not well developed, not well play tested, etc. Certainly that goes on. But again, there are dropped again for the second time. Small publishers being synonymous with bad quality product. Sure, it happens. But that is not a reason for us to turn our noses up and stop being curious, stop supporting them. And I'm not just saying that in defense of myself. If you never ever have or ever will buy a game from me, that's fine. But there are plenty of publishers out there that deserve your support, and just because they don't have the three-letter acronym doesn't mean we should give them a cold shoulder. What else? Doesn't mean we should give them the cold shoulder, but we need to be open-minded and supportive of these companies. And if there's something out there that you think is poor quality, let them know. Let me know. You know, it's the feedback that's going to make, like I said, it's going to make us better, it's going to make the hobby better. Feedback, 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 right? So let us know. Welcome back, sir, or ma'am, as it were. I apologize for the buzzing in and off, but think of this as like a kind of a interactive. Okay, I'm getting him off this. Small publishers, not necessarily bad. That's all I'm trying to say. If you have a small print run, not necessarily bad. We have to be open-minded about these things. Some of them are going to suck, and over time, they'll sink. Might be me. Over time, I might end up sinking. If you're no good, you're not going to make it. So, you know, word of mouth. If the product's no good, let people know. If it's good, same token, let people know. It's going to help you. It's going to help the publisher. It's going to help everybody. When you get a game and it sucks, and you stick it on the shelf, and you let dust collect on it, and the cat scratches it, uses it as a scratching post, and you take it out occasionally to throw at your wife because she said something that irritates you, that doesn't do anybody any good. Don't put the game on the shelf and do that. Take that game out as a reminder to contact the publisher of that game and let other people know about that game and see what can be done in that respect. It's going to help everybody in the long run. So that's really, you know, I don't mean to preach or anything like that. I'm just trying to talk. This stuff's important. It is a kind of, not just, you know, it's a hobby, but it isn't. I mean, for most of us, it's so much more than a hobby. And I know you know what I'm talking about. It's a lifestyle. It's a pastime, a passion. It's a way of life. You know, a hobby is, no offense, but a hobby is like, God, how do I say something when I'm offending somebody? Sorry, but your stamp collection or crocheting a blanket, no offense, those things are all great, but those are more hobbies. This is a way of life. There's so many interconnected facets of this stuff in the community, and it just goes so far beyond the paper and the cardboard pieces and the little rule book. It's just supersedes so much more. So that's that, and I'll shut up as far as the preaching and all that junk, and get to the nitty-gritty. And why does it want, see, I'm looking at YouTube here for the chat thing, so you can respond, and unless I'm missing something or you're not responding, not that you need to, maybe you're on your phone watching, but it wants me to say something. Well, I'm saying something here, so why do I need to type something? You see, I'm new to all this stuff. I sound like an old man. I guess I am an old man. So what do I have otherwise? I do have something. And I appreciate you hearing me out. I do have something here. It's nothing mind-blowing, but some of you might be familiar with, and I'm going to have to move the camera in a second to show you this, but a few of you may be familiar with, and I bounce back and forth between World War II tactical and Napoleon stuff. That's pretty much where I'm at. I rarely get into modern stuff, although I appreciate it, and I have, and I never do ancients. It just does nothing for me. I respect it, and I'm occasionally, I find my curiosity occasionally, the door of my curiosity knocked upon, if you will, but that's it. I never open that door. I go hide in the other room until they leave. That's how I deal with that. So it's always World War II tactical, and at that, mostly European theater and Napoleonic stuff. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about this game, Avalanche Press, and say what you will about Avalanche Press, but they, you know, they've been around for a while, and they got a couple interesting things, this included. And not sure when this came out. Well, should I say 1999? Like, God, I am getting old. I can't even read the. I think it says 1999. This came out. There you go, right there. And why am I showing you this? Well, again, big fan of winter stuff. And this is a battle that took place in the winter. In fact, I just read recently, and I'd like to do a show about this if I could get more information. The first battle of Narva against Sweden and Russia, Charles and Peter, no? Took place in 1700. And the cool thing about that is, again, coming from a lover of all things cold and snow, which is why I live in New Orleans, right? Yeah, exactly. It's hilarious. The Russians had outnumbered the Swedish 3-1 or 4-1, depending on what you read. And I think, did Peter leave? Is that how it goes? I think he left assured that his troops would be fine. Some accused him of being a coward. That's why he left. The man is not a coward. There are many, many, many accounts of him demonstrating bravery in battle. So that was not the case. Why he left, is anybody's guess, but I doubt it was that. So he left his troops to the task, which he was confident they would accomplish. But the Swedish under Charles decided they would surprise them, catch them unprepared, and just bum rush them, and that's what they did. And this was timed, or at least inspired by a snowstorm that was blowing in the Russians' eyes. So kind of like fighter pilots would use the sun at their back to blind other planes as they strafed them. So the Swedish used the blowing snow, which was making it extremely difficult for the Russians to effectively see what was going on. Not that they were completely blinded, mind you, but you know how snowstorms can be, and it's enough to have to deal with combat, much less snowflakes blowing in your eyes and your face. So that was very interesting to me. I thought, hey, maybe a show on that subject would be a worthy thing to do. But anyway, back to the task at hand. The fun part of this show, this game. So here's the map. Here's the map that comes with it. It has 4 squares. It folds up and it has 4 squares. Now you can see, maybe I can throw this up for scale. There's the box next to the map. It's functional. Being the tinkerer that I am, and if any of you know me, you're already aware of this, this isn't sufficient. It's fine, but I can do better. And that's what I did today. Went to FedEx Kinko's on break. In fact, missed lunch because, long story, but luckily there was a very patient, nice lady that let me get this printed out so I could be on my merry way and make it back to work. So you may have guessed, what I did was make this bigger. And I'm not going to be able to effectively demonstrate how big with this stinking camera phone, but if I lay this map to scale, see that? This fits in the middle, right, with a ton of room on either side. So what I did was blow this up double. Why are we talking about hockey? Sorry, I got a text from my brother about something about the Blues. Hockey season. Huge, right? Not bad, huh? What else is going on with this? Well, if that wasn't enough, we've got, some of you might be familiar with Bonaparte and Marengo or Napoleon's Triumph. And as much fun as those games are and as beautiful as those games are, I will never regret purchasing them even if they sucked and were ugly because of these guys. The size is perfect. They're already painted, they're already marked. I use them for a ton of stuff. I used them most recently for Fleeting Glory to playtest that thing and finish developing what had been an ongoing, long project. So, I guess you could call this area movement. Now, you may not see very well, but there are sections or areas marked off. And having blown this up twice the size, they are now simply perfect for this. And it is a similar concept to Napoleon's Triumph and Bonaparte and Marengo in that there is facing involved based on the particular space in which you were in. Might be a little leg work to get the counters to coincide with what I have here, but I think I can do this, especially even if I have to, I don't want to say dumb it down, but paraphrase it, if you will. So here's the counters that it comes with. Not bad either, by the way. And I've had this set up in the past and played, but it's an interesting game. But there's the counter. Can you see this? Next to the pieces. So why am I showing you that? I'm not sure. But there you go. If you were curious about what the counter looks like in comparison to these, now you know. So that's my next project. This is a for fun project. This is not a design, develop, play test, lose your mind, sacrifice your relationship, all the above. This is just relax, have fun, enjoy wargaming again. So yeah, I really look forward to this, and when I get all this worked out and set up, I'll be posting pictures of what I got. This is going to be an ongoing project. The lady friend's gone for quite some time, so I have a lot of time to myself. So that's what I'll be doing. And I think that pretty much sums it up. Unless I'm doing something wrong and people are trying to respond and can't. I have no questions that have been presented and have been asked, really, so maybe once this gets posted, I don't know how this is going to post, probably 3 different videos now because of the delays and interruptions with the Wi-Fi. I don't know what's going on with our Wi-Fi. Strange, spooky things at this place, and it's bad enough I have window units. The humidity in here, as I already mentioned. And not just, I don't worry just about the discomfort, but I worry about all this paper and cardboard behind me, because it doesn't like humidity. See all that? Humidity bad. So I might even look into getting a dehumidifier. And sorry, I'm getting text messages. It's so funny. If people knew I was doing this, they wouldn't be texting me. So, yeah, humidity bad, and maintain train of thought good. So here I am. Now you can put a face behind the. And I'm back. So I don't want to press my luck too much further. I've said pretty much what I had to say. But the most important thing is, and I know there's not a lot of you watching right now. In fact, it looks like one person. Thank you, by the way. But I do want to say thank you for those of you that will watch this eventually. Thank you for your support with the podcast. And I'm going out again. What is going on here? This is ridiculous. Jesus. All right. Do I have to wait to finish what I have to say? No. Yes. No. Yes. Bad connection. Bad connection. All right. I'm just going to end this. Thank you guys, everything, for your support, etc. It's great.